Good morning, everybody. I am Joel Dunn. I'm the Executive Director of the Chesapeake Conservancy, and we are honored to be your host and to welcome you to the National Workshop on Large Landscape Conservation. I would also like to welcome you to the Chesapeake Bay, an ecosystem we love very much. During the next 2 days, we'll be talking about the current and promising future of large landscape conservation, how we, the conservation community, are, through innovative and collaborative large landscape initiatives, providing solutions for the American people. We'll also talk about how we can be even more effective in the coming years in being good stewards of our landscapes in the face of climate change and sea level rise, development and fragmentation, and the myriad other challenges that threaten ecosystem function, wildlife, and productivity. To point us in the right direction, we are fortunate to have a terrific group of national conservation leaders participating in our plenary sessions. Those include Sally Jewell, Mike Boots, John Conger, Krista Harden, Colin O'Mara, Steve Girton, Jim Geringer, and many others, it's like an all-star cast. So I'm really excited about our conference. From all these speakers and the participants, there is clearly a call to action for us to be courageous in partnership, for us to break down traditional barriers, and to think different about how we achieve our conservation goals. I'd like to take a moment to thank and recognize our sponsors for today's event, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Park Service, Environmental Protection Agency, Bureau of Land Management, ESRI, U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities, Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, the Conservation Fund, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and Highstead Foundation. It's a pretty amazing group of supporters, and the idea that those folks are all bought into this large landscape conservation concept is pretty amazing. I'd also like to thank all of the individuals and organizations that were involved in the planning for this workshop. We are indebted to their commitment to the principles of large landscape conservation and collective action. I'd also like to thank the board of directors of the Chesapeake Conservancy, many of whom are going to be joining us today. Our small, nimble nonprofit, young nonprofit, is only capable of hosting today's meeting because of our board's support, encouragement, and shared commitment to large landscape conservation along the Captain John Smith Chesapeake National Historic Trail. We work in partnership with the National Park Service on that initiative in the Chesapeake. Over the next 2 days, you may have some logistical questions about various things. Please seek out our very capable Chesapeake Conservancy staff and partner volunteers. I'm grateful for their hard work to pull together today's event. Particularly Sarah Elder, who's our Director of Operations, and Lolita Ross, who's our event planner and available for hire. Note that each session room will have a volunteer present, so if there are any logistical or technical issues, there'll be somebody in each room to assist you. You should know that I'm a man that loves his family, loves his country, and loves the Chesapeake Bay. I love our rivers, I love our landscapes, I love our wildlife and our cultures. And a friend of mine recently asked me, he said, is it possible to conserve large landscapes here in the East, in the crowded East, in the Chesapeake Bay? And my answer was emphatically yes. In fact, we have to. We have to do it. And large, conserved, connected landscapes, particularly along our great rivers, are vital to protect the Chesapeake Bay, to address sea level rise, maintain wildlife habitat, and create access for people to get out on the Chesapeake and our great rivers so that they can learn to love the Chesapeake Bay, so that they'll vote for the Chesapeake Bay, they'll donate to it, they'll commit their careers to it. So I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, and he's been an inspiration to me for many years. His name is Jim Levitt. Jim is a fellow at the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy and directs Harvard University's program on conservation innovation. Jim has encouraged me to think bigger, think different, think large landscape conservation, and he actually inspired this workshop today. Jim's an expert on land conservation, climate change adaptation, and conservation finance. He's written 3 great books, Conservation Capital in America, From Walden to Wall Street, and Conservation in the Internet Age. He's a graduate of Yale College and the Yale School of Management, and he served on the National Advisory Board of the Long-Term Ecological Research Program sponsored by NSF. He's also a past vice chair of the Audubon Society. It's my pleasure to introduce Jim Levitt.
Thank you, Joel. It is an honor to be here today and to serve with Joel and Doug Austin as the co-chair of this conference. Having worked for more than a year and a half on pulling this amazing group of people together, I am immensely gratified to see you all here. You represent a sellout crowd. In fact, we had to move from the amphitheater into this room to make sure that everyone had a place to sit. You represent something like 600 people, probably more. You come from Alaska and Hawaii and as nearby as Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. Included among you is a superb set of plenary and concurrent session speakers with a dizzying array of experience and expertise, eloquent writers and first-class scientists, policymakers and deal doers, Republicans and Democrats, farmers, city dwellers, and wilderness advocates. And you have in your midst a tremendously generous set of workshop partners and sponsors that Joel just listed. Please, all of you, accept our immense gratitude. The people in this room are the conservation innovators of the 21st century. You are creating yet another American precedent of great interest to conservationists around the globe. It is evident from your work that large landscape conservation has come of age. It is no longer just a theory. It is happening in the field right now around the nation. From the wetlands of the Swanee River to the California deserts. From urban Baltimore to the Chicago wilderness and the Portland intertwine. And from the height of the crown of the continent to the depths of the ocean beyond the Hawaiian Islands. You are literally covering the map. The tangible benefits you're creating are multiple and essential to the future of our nation. Working across parcel boundaries, jurisdictional boundaries, sectors and disciplines, you are, just to name a few benefits, protecting wildlife habitat and strengthening the viability of wildlife populations, enhancing the nation's energy security and military readiness, producing sustainable timber harvests and sequestering carbon, and providing water for our cities, green infrastructure for our coastlines, and flood protection for the heartland. These solutions to national challenges are at the center of gravity of our workshop. We are getting the job done. This morning session that you're about to hear, this plenary session, is organized around a very simple idea, that exemplary large landscape initiatives can be inspired by national leadership. Indeed, they are inspired by national leadership, enabled by regional coordination, and realized through the persistent and dedicated work of people at the local level. Indeed, we are most fortunate to have with us here today inspired national leaders, both in person and in one case in a videotape. Imaginative regional coordinators and intensely dedicated locals that are getting the job done literally on the ground and in the water.